Welcome to the Building Thriving Lifestyles podcast. I am your host, Eiki Lóttóttir, and on this podcast, we're going to cover all topics related to help you build your thriving lifestyles. We're both going to incorporate some actionable advice and shorter episodes, but we'll also go more in depth and do some longer interviews with people who have already built a thriving lifestyle for themselves. I can't wait to share more with you. Welcome to the Building Thriving Lifestyles podcast. I'm your host, Eiki Lóttóttir, and welcome to episode number 23. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of chatting to Carrie Zimmer. She is undeniably the queen of creating systems and structures and super visually appealing data to both keep herself and others motivated. She has taught me so much over the last few years. I'm not sure that she knows it, but she inspires me on a daily basis. With her level head and a really clear way to navigate life, it was a real pleasure to sit down and chat to her about her values and what she uses as methods to kind of help her through all of that. I am sure that we all can learn a thing or two. I'm going to leave the word to Carrie Zimmer. Thank you, Carrie, so much for joining me for a little chat today. I am super excited to kind of share your views and vision that I've got to know over the last couple of years. And yeah, I'm so inspired. So I just really wanted to grab you onto the podcast and hear some more.
Well, it's an honor, for sure.
Always an honor. And for people who don't know you, how would you explain your life to a complete stranger that you just met at an event?
My life is pretty simple, to be quite honest, which is nice. I'm a teacher. I teach 5th grade, and I spend most of my day with kids that are 10 and 11. And right now I'm teaching math and science. So numbers and data have kind of always been something that appeals to me, which is part of probably why we're having this conversation, because I do like tracking things and knowing those things. So I see that in my life with these kids. And, besides being a teacher, I go to the gym regularly. I hang out with my friends. I like to read, try to stay active. And, I think a large portion of my life does involve routine, and I find comfort in that continuity. And I know there's a need for spontaneity, but that's not my greatest trait. But, I think, I'm a teacher, I'm a reader, I'm a friend. I love to bake, and I'm trying to become a better sleeper. So we're working on that.
We always have some work in progress. But I was going to say, I can definitely vouch for the baker thing. They got the beautiful bagels the day that I moved into the building, since we now are neighbors in the same residential building. So what do you like to do when you're not working, sleeping, and eating? Came a little bit into the reading and the working out.
Yeah, those are really like the primary kinds of things, right? Because I do work a full-time job, and it is one that does have pretty set hours. So contrary to a lot of people in Dubai who have a lot more flexibility with their timeline, I'm on a pretty tight or strict schedule where I do work every day from 7:30 to 3:30. And I usually go to the gym every day after school. I've held the hours of 4 to 6 pretty tight as a priority. I usually say no to most other invitations that occur between those hours, because I've chosen to make working out a priority in my life. And then I go home and I eat and watch some Netflix, and I make sure I read every day, at least 15 minutes. It is something I try to hold myself accountable to. And on the weekends, when there's more time, it's, nice to go to the beach with my friends or just get outside, at least right now while the weather is nicer. I mean, it looks like we're going to get some rain in the next couple of days, so that should be interesting around here. But when we can get outside in the winter in Dubai, it's certainly, nice to be able to do that as well.
Absolutely. And I love how you kind of combine everything. And I love the words that you chose to make that a priority. That's definitely a nice attribute there.
I get frustrated when people say they don't have time for something. I believe that's a complete fallacy. We have time for exactly what we make time for. And if it's your priority, you find a way to make it happen. And if you want to work out, you can. You just have to find a way to make it work in your schedule. If you want to read, you can do that. When people say, I don't have time to read. As a teacher, that makes me a little crazy, because if you want to find time to read, you will find time. It's just like if you found time to binge that Netflix show. So there is time. It's all how we choose to use it.
Yeah. And this is definitely a practice that I have been practicing recently, to say, it's not a priority at the moment. It's that, instead of saying it's not, I don't have time for it. So I'm very...
And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's easy.
No.
But
is that one of your kind of things that you would say constitutes for you to have a thriving life, is to make time for the things that you choose? Or are there other elements that you consider part of the thriving lifestyle package?
Yeah, well, I think so, because I mean, if you're going to have a thriving lifestyle, it should be doing things that you enjoy. And that's, of course, going to be different for everyone. It's certainly individualized. And for me, I do find comfort in routine and continuity. So it's like I like those things that I can do on a daily basis. And it is easier if you just tell yourself it's a part of what you're doing, rather than, trying and hoping it happens, because hoping it's going to happen is, a bit like, moonshot thinking, which is great, but it doesn't always get you where you want to go. It's much easier to have a structure to work within. And so for me, finding that consistency, finding that routine, and making sure that those things happen on a daily, weekly, and monthly kind of basis are what I find comfort in. And I know for some people that's crazy, but I think you find more freedom and more time by managing those things.
Yeah.
I don't do well when it's a lot of chaos, because I feel like I've lost a lot of time when I get sucked into the black hole of social media and all that time disappears. It's way easier for me to feel like I've used my time wisely by making sure I've read every day, or I went to the gym, and that time just didn't wallow away me laying on the couch and watching a movie. So for sure.
Do you feel like, because often when we talk about, thriving, it's always some kind of a balance between something and something, or, this versus that, or work-life balance, or something like that. Do you feel like you have the need for some kind of a balance between the structure and the unpredictable, or is UAE life unpredictable enough on the outside as well?
I think it, for sure it depends, because I do love the continuity and consistency, but I know that spontaneity is something that I actually have to kind of push myself. Or if there's an invitation where I know it's going to run a little later and it's going to cause a little disruption, I can choose that, but I choose it pretty consciously, in a sense, where I pick and choose what I think will fit well, knowing that I have to work early, that I don't have a job that allows me to just shut the door and work on a computer for 8 hours. I have 21 faces, that rely on me to, so it's a little different than a lot of people who can just, if you're not having a great day, go to work and just, plug away on their laptop and have a coffee. And that's not the circumstance that teachers are in, which is definitely unique. But I know that I could be more spontaneous, and it is something I try to be a bit of a yes person when people invite me to do things, because when you do choose a more routine lifestyle, sometimes the invitations don't come as often. And so when I am invited places, I do try to be a yes person, and I do try to find ways to work that in what I'm already planned for the week, but I'm not great at saying yes at the last minute. If you ask me 3 days in advance, it's way easier for me to say yes than it is if you say the day of, can we go tonight at 8? Because that is something that mentally I'm no, sorry.
I do think we're quite similar in that sense. It almost feels like I just said that.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, we are similar, Ake, that's for sure.
That is definitely true. So what do you think are the main values that kind of guide you? Are you aware of your values? Is that something you apply on a regular basis? Tell me a little bit more about that.
I don't think I think about it consciously all the time, but since you sent me these questions in advance, I did jot a few things down that I think are important to me. And some of the things that came to mind is that I really pride myself on being the type of person that will tell you what I'm thinking and be honest about it. Because I don't do well with filling time with unnecessary things, trying to tell you what you want to hear. And I think sometimes that's difficult for people to understand and difficult for even, students in my class to hear from time to time. But in the long run, what you get is an honest feeling from me of what our relationship is or what the situation is or what we need to do to go from A to B. But I really try to, not just talk the talk, but like I don't tell people to read and I don't do it myself.
Yeah.
Right. I don't suggest you read this book if I haven't read it myself, or the same thing. Like I don't ask of others anything that I don't think I would ask of myself. The same thing with the kids is I really try to, as a teacher, find things that we can do in the classroom in a way that a functioning adult would operate. Because I think that students and people of all ages respond much better if they're treated in the same way that you would actually like to be held to in a situation. So like honesty and loyalty kind of tie into that. I try really hard to be a good friend, and I don't have a lot of friends, but that's because I'm better friends with the friends that I don't have a large circle. I think it's too much to maintain. I don't do it well. But yeah, I think whatever works for each person is great. And for me, it's, a small circle of friends that we can really count on each other. And
how
that that I'll
authenticity and kind of loyalty.
Yeah. That if you need me, I'll be there. And that I ask for the same in return.
Yeah, those are really good values. And I can totally see how that kind of is a red line through the things that you do from what I know you. How do you think that your values differ from other people's? Do you feel like there's a clash there? Do you feel like these are common values? Any ideas there?
They are. I think like honesty and loyalty and all that are values that a lot of people hold. I think that as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at holding myself to them because it is not always easy to think like if you have a relationship with a friend and their actions just don't align with how you hold yourself, to like take that step away. And I think when you're younger, it's a lot easier to let it slide and let it go. But as I've gotten older, it's been easier for me to say that, or tell myself it's okay to take that step away, that it's not how I want to live my life. It's not how I want to be perceived by being in connection with those people. And I think it's a little easier to do that when you become more comfortable with yourself and, less reliant on other people to kind of help you build your self-esteem. Because I think as it's become over the years a little easier for me to feel confident in who I am and the decisions I've made. And I think that comes with time and experience, and it's not something that is easily gained when you're young. So you feel a lot of that from others, and it's much more difficult to uphold some of those values when you still want to maintain a bunch of relationships that 10 years from now might not be as important to you.
Yeah. It's right. Trying to fit in, like compromising yourself to try to fit in is not always the best way forward.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to do it anymore. And it's way easier now to be like, it's okay. Yeah. And if that means it's like one less invitation, back to that whole, like maybe it's because I'll get less social, that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, you just become more comfortable with that and the independence of it all.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you saying a lot of like building boundaries about what you like to do and what you don't like to do, and using that boundary to kind of fend off the things that, let's say that you compromise your value and say yes to something, then you end up not having fun by sitting there and actually not enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that when you start saying yes to things that you're not sure about, then it's not just your experience that's not great. It can impact those that are around you. And I've learned that I don't want to do a lot of brunches because that's not my scene. Will I go when it's something or someone that's important to me or a large group of people that I want to be around? Then absolutely. But I'm really kind of selective in those things. And I only do them when I know that it's for someone or for an event or an experience that's important to me and that I want to invest the time and my energy, because when you're in your 40s, that energy is like, it's valuable. It's really hard to, build up when you use all of it. So it's not like you are in your 20s and you just recover quickly from everything. So it's definitely a factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of times are valuable, no matter what our age is.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can become more aware of it when you can see that the what's it called, the prime hours or.
Yeah, well, anything that starts after 8 p.m. is getting a little questionable. 8 p.m. Maybe.
Maybe we'll see about that. But that super ties back into the whole like I choose to do, and these are priorities that I make time for, and these are not. So I get that kind of all ties back together. But I have a question because like you're American. How does this like authenticity and speaking your mind and like the whole American culture, have you found any clashes there? Is it?
I think Americans are pretty good at speaking their mind.
Yeah.
They're not always truthful, I think.
I'm not saying they're all liars. I'm just saying there's definitely some cultural things with like speaking very directly.
Well, I think Americans are opinionated, but I think actually quite a lot of Americans don't say what they mean. I think it's culturally very acceptable to dance around the truth of it all and not talk about things and try to portray yourself one way, but it be another. And it's definitely less common, people are like, I'm very honest about things, but I don't think that that's actually an American trait to be so upfront with how you're feeling, because the majority of Americans I don't think are confrontational, and I'm not either, but I won't just allow something to be said that is an issue for me, or if I can't remove myself from the situation, then I will say something, because I feel pretty strongly about things being fair. And so like when you're at home on Thanksgiving and it's like the political thing, which in America is like a huge nightmare. We don't talk about it because my family, we're all on different sides of the thing and there's no reasoning with anyone. But so I think Americans like are fine to speak their mind, but I just don't think that they often actually mean what they say or they follow through with any of it.
I was going to say, I'm not saying that they're lying or that they're being like deceiving, but there is like the more like the dancing around the topic, like not like directly addressing
of course.
it.
That's absolutely a thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's not something that you kind of run into any problems with, or I don't know.
No, but I think I've always been counted on to be the person that would, instead of dancing around it, would be the one that would cut through it.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I used to, before I lived in the UAE, I lived in Italy, and the group of teachers I worked with, most of them were American. And I was one of like 3 teachers that they chose to put on our contract bargaining committee. And who wants to do that? No one. But they wanted me to do it because they knew, no, it's horrible, but they knew that I would not say something. Like if we needed to fight for a certain thing, that I would be willing to stand up and say what we wanted rather than be the person who would just dance around it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like it's a double-edged sword to be able to be that person. Because first, I don't like being vulnerable. That's definitely one of my like weaknesses, areas of growth, as we would say.
Yeah.
Because I don't like putting myself in situations where I don't know how I'm going to get out of it, or I don't know what the resolution is going to be. But I do appreciate the fact that I'm willing to push forward and have a difficult conversation if we have to, because otherwise you're just wasting time. And that's probably one of my biggest difficulties is time wasting. I have very character flaw. I have very little patience for time wasting.
So like trigger for you. That's like something that really upsets you. Yeah.
Yeah. It drives me crazy.
I can.
It goes along with the thing that when people say they don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you waste it.
Yeah. You're not doing something productive. Is that the same thing? Like, can you waste time in a productive way? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of how I try to manage it a little more, is like, it's not like I spend my whole weekend regimented with a schedule of every, hour detailed, but when I'm home or when I have like windows of time, I try to make myself, if I'm I'm binging the Netflix show, which is great, I try to make myself stop every so often and like read for 15 minutes so that it doesn't feel like I just let the whole, day wash away, that I did, interject some pieces of like actual quality life living along the way, rather than, I can be a couch potato with the best of them, which is great, but I don't always enjoy how I feel after a full day of like nothingness. It's fine, but then I struggle a little bit with the reflection of that at the end of the day. Like, where did the day go? What did I do? There's so much to do and I did nothing today.
Yeah.
So like, I have a hard time with that.
Okay. Another area for growth or not. It's a personality trait for sure. So time management, organizing, and other things are some of the life hacks. Is there something you left out from us, from a life hack that you use? How do you kind of keep track of everything? And
I think what works for each person is different, but it's going to be no surprise to anyone that knows me that I like data and charts and graphics. And even for myself in the past, I've like kept a calendar with little symbols to mark down, like if I've done certain things over the course of a day. And like I mentioned
habit
before,
tracker kind of thing, or
yeah, but like just made my own on a calendar. And I was what's funny about that is that, people think, oh, that's so crazy and regimented. And yes, you're right. But at the same time, like, as I mentioned before, like you actually find freedom in all of that consistency, because I could look at the calendar and say, oh, well, out of the 30 days of this month, 25 of them I did X. And it's like, oh, well, that's really great. Like, that's pretty successful. And so suddenly you see where your time went. You're like, oh, well, every day this month I read 15 minutes. And if you do the math on that, like suddenly you're like, wait, I read 7 hours or something this month over the course of the month. And so yes, I've kept like habit trackers before, and I really, and that works for my personality because I'm very type A and I enjoy visual data. I've read books on it and am totally into visual data and all of its properties and designs, and try to, share it in the classroom. And I share it at the gym when I make all the open data and stats and try to turn it into something fun and crazy and unique, like the amount of weight we lift in terms of like elephants, or the height of the box jump in terms of the height of a mountain, because I think it makes it more fun for everyone. It gives some kind of, visual tangent so that people can think about like what we've actually accomplished. And I think part of the tracking is to recognize those accomplishments. When people are frustrated with not accomplishing things, it's more just because they haven't paid attention to what they've actually done along the way. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be like check marks on a calendar. And that way you can look at the week and be like, oh my gosh, I did actually do all of those things this week. And it doesn't have to feel like you didn't do anything. Yep.
Does it feel motivating to you, or more like a chore when you note it down? Do you feel like that impacts?
Most of the time I enjoy it. Now, for me, I really enjoy it, and it wouldn't work for everyone. I'm not doing it specifically now as much as I was before. I think after you spend some time doing it, it becomes almost less necessary to do it quite as specifically, because you're more aware of what you're doing anyways. Like, I already know that I'm reading every day. I don't have to mark it down anymore. And I already know that I'm doing all of my workouts because I have that tracked in the app that I share with you. And I already know what the weights are that I'm lifting and they're improving because I track that in an app. So even though I'm not doing it on a calendar, like on a monthly basis, I have it in bits and pieces in some other places right now. And that helps keep track of some of it as different data points. So I don't find it a chore. I know some people would, and I would say if it's not something that feels natural to someone initially, I would say track one thing.
Yeah.
Right. Just track one thing to see if it fits within your life and see if how you feel about it after a week of making notes about it. And does it make you feel different at the end of the week when you look back and you're like, oh, I drank this much water, or I walked this many steps, or it can be anything. Something so simple or something way more complicated. But, everyone can try it and see how it works for them.
Yeah. Do you keep things on rotation? You mentioned that you're no longer tracking the reading. Do you then add a new habit you want to challenge yourself with? Or do you kind of stay consistent with the same ones? Or what is it looking for you?
I don't know. I think I have an app that tracks my reading. So a lot of the things have stayed consistent, even though that the format has changed.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm tracking anything new at the moment, but it kind of just depends on like the phase of your life and what's important to you in that moment. And, I'm trying to be a little bit more cognizant of making the videos of the gymnastics that we're working on so that I can see the progressions a little more. So that even taking videos of those kinds of things is habit tracking and like data tracking so that you can see the progress over time. I'm trying to make sure to put dates on videos so that I'm not having to like guess when I look back if I lose it out of a certain, like off the original file. So I don't know that I'm tracking necessarily anything totally new, but I think they just kind of keep evolving the ways in which I'm tracking different things. So
absolutely. No, it's very motivating how you use data, and like with the open and all the different nationalities from the gym and other things. I think I need to make sure that I link those graphic images in the show notes so people can check out what you actually mean. That's super entertaining for me.
I may have put on my Instagram bio that I'm the Elias Queen of Visual Data.
Yeah. I'll give you the title any day. Rachel can do all kinds of cool graphics, but definitely not analysis of any data.
Yeah.
What would you say if we segue a little bit from the things that you use to kind of hack your life? What do you have any strategies that you put into play when you're making any difficult decisions or monumental decisions? Is there any tactics to it? You're very analytical, so I'm just wondering.
I mean, I think I've actually probably been fairly fortunate in my life that not too many of my decisions have felt monumental, to be fair. However, like, I mean, I think I consult like my mom and people that I value their opinions and listen to what they have to say. And then in the end, I tend to like kind of go with a gut reaction or my own opinion, because I feel like usually I don't make a decision without it kind of being like well thought through already.
Yeah.
And so, I think that that's one of the things, like I'm pretty good at trusting my instincts when it comes to like some of those decisions. You try to, ask a few people and see what they think. And then I don't spend too much time on it. Shocking, because I think it wastes time. So I'm much more of a like, let's just make a decision kind of gal.
And then live with it, whatever it is.
Yeah, because otherwise then I lose sleep, right? Yep. This is part of the sleep problem, is that I worry about things. So it's better just to make those decisions and
move on.
Yeah, and move on.
When you tune in with your gut, what does that mean to you? How do you tune in with your gut?
Sometimes I think like when you know that there's two options, you think about both of them, and if you think about one and there's something disappointing about it or something, you're like, yeah, I don't know if I'd like if it's then it sways you away from that. So it's like, if I have these two things, like, or will I regret something in the future? Trying to take into account what you think the future implications are. But I think I try to think about those things, and then I just
so kind of a pros and cons list, a little bit of like, will this matter in 5-10 years?
Yeah.
Somewhere in
between for sure.
That?
Because especially when we think about, how we talked about friendships and whatever, and it's way easier now to think about, will this thing I'm upset about matter in 6 months, and let those things go. Yeah. Because if it's not going to matter, then let's just move on. And with the bigger decisions, trying to think about, living life without too many regrets, and like trying to be a yes person when it's really challenging for me to sometimes be a yes person, but to think about, what's the worst that could happen? Like if you said no, or if you said yes, like what might be the opposite of the choice, and and then just having a feeling about it for sure.
Definitely. Is there at some point where because you've used the term I get to do, and it is a priority. So once you make those decisions, are you like, yes, I'm going to do this. This is a priority. Is it like down to that level of specificity, or is it more like this feels right for me in the moment?
It probably depends on what it is.
Yeah. Fair. Good answer.
Because like if it's something small that's easy to manage and make a priority like pretty quickly, then yes. Like, something right now that I'm trying to decide what I want to do with is I just did that precision nutrition certificate.
Yeah.
And what do I want to do with that? Do I want to try to do something with that? Long term, I'd love it to be like something that could replace my teaching job, but am I ready to do something with it on the short term? I have no idea.
We need to have some more conversations.
So I don't know like where I want to go with that right now. So right now that's one of those like, let's mull it over and let it simmer for a little bit, because I do have to factor in how much time I have, because I still have a full-time job and I want to be able to honor my priority of the gym. And so then it's like, with the time that I have left over, how much of that am I willing to commit to learning that habit and take my teaching skills and coaching skills that I use here into something like that. And can I do it? Absolutely. It's about how much energy I'm ready to devote to that. And I don't have the answer to that yet.
No, so, and no one is pressuring you. Take all the time.
So we're just letting that mull around for a little bit, and then we'll,
absolutely.
It did take me a year to do the course, so I figure there's really no rush in the final in an outcome of that decision either. Just that. So
I was going to say, what is it? Every 2 years you have to renew the certification, or every 3 years? I don't remember.
Yes,
I think 3 maybe.
It's 2. No, it's 2 from when you finish.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So it didn't matter that I started a year ago. Now I have 2 years from now.
Got you.
Until I have to do something again. Yeah. So let's take a month and then we'll
reassess. Because it sounds like we need to have some more conversations about what's possible in the coaching business world.
Yeah, well, we could. Yes, I have a great resource in that sitting right here with me. So pick your brain another time.
Exactly. What do you classify as success in life, and what would success look like for you?
I think one of the things that I think about a lot is that I'm single and I need to be able to financially and physically take care of myself as I get older. I don't know what's going to happen with my relationship status, and I want to be prepared regardless. So a lot of what I think about in terms of success is feeling comfortable in the fact that financially, physically, I'll be able to take care of myself. So that's like a lot of what the goals that I have worked towards is like why I'm at the gym. Well, because when I'm 80, I want to be able to stand up off the couch as much as possible on my own, like for as long as possible. And financially, the same thing, like why I might want to figure out if I could do something with the coaching that would provide something beyond teaching.
Yeah.
Because I know that I don't want to teach forever. So it's like kind of looking longitudinally at what could fill some of the income gaps if I were to eventually, not teach full time or move on from teaching. So, kind of just thinking about the long-term goals that I have for myself or things that I wish for in the future and making them, viable. is kind of what I'm thinking of in terms of success. And like short-term basis, it's like, am I enjoying my life on a day-to-day basis? And I think most days the answer to that is yes. And I think everyone should classify that as success.
Yeah, it's definitely an important one. What do you consider being the best part of your day?
Oh my gosh, it's the gym.
Particularly.
Yeah. No, I love the gym. And I think that's hysterical because if you had asked me that question 5 or 10 years ago, I would have never dreamed of such an answer being the truth. But I think what people miss from like coming from a background of basically no athletic experience prior to starting CrossFit, I think what people miss is the idea that how much challenge you can mentally get in a gym when you're actually doing things that are hard.
Yep.
And I think as women, especially, we are inclined to do things that are comfortable. And starting CrossFit is a prime example of me really putting myself out of my comfort zone because I was terrified. And I never held a barbell until I was 42. And to start something that is so physically demanding and challenging without any background, which so many people, at least in our personal community, come in with a lot of background or they're significantly younger and they have a lot more athletic experience. It's a whole different ball game, I think, for someone like me. And as you've learned, I require, everything to be broken down into the tiniest of pieces and to learn. But I love it because even though we're sweating and working hard, I don't notice as much because I'm having to do so much thinking about technique and skill and things. Like it doesn't just come so easy for me. So I love that I can forget everything else because my mind is way too busy at the gym.
Yeah.
Figuring out,
how to
pull
move
your
your body
elbows down, moving properly. Don't forget to do this, X, Y, and Z. And so I love it because I can completely shut off what's happening at work. If work is stressful, if my personal life seems like, not going the way I want, like the gym is an escape for all of that. And I love it.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew you liked coming to the gym. I didn't know there was a highlight of the gym.
Oh, it's my favorite.
That's so good.
Yeah. No, it's my favorite because even though some of them act like 10-year-olds, they're not. So it's at least different from the classroom somewhat, not always.
Not always.
But also it's what I think, a lot of people are scared of CrossFit because it does seem intimidating to some. But I think too, people forget that it's a community of like-minded individuals. And so what I found personally when I first tried to get into fitness was that I was with a bunch of teachers or people who weren't really concerned about nutrition and it wasn't their priority. And so if they wanted to go out for a drink after work, they didn't understand the notion of, well, I'm not going to have anything to eat. I'm only going to, come visit. Like, I think within a CrossFit community or a community of people that share those values, there's a lot more acceptance of that. And it's not, you don't have to fight as hard or explain as often. And I think that's really important. If like that's something that's important to you, to find those people that will understand if you say, oh, well, right now, like what I'm eating is really important to me. And they won't say, well, here, have a cupcake.
No.
Because that's kind of the culture of schools is like, oh, it's my birthday, have a cupcake.
Yeah.
And it's nice to join a community where there is some understanding and tolerance for making decisions and sticking with them.
Yeah. But yeah, both understanding and tolerance, but maybe also just like a culture that you kind of tap into, that there are some other values and norms at play. And the whole notion that you're the summary of the 5 people you hang out with mostly, you kind of tend to adapt some of their habits and routines. So you have to pick those people wisely who you choose to surround yourself with.
Yeah, of course. And, not a lot of my teacher coworkers understand like that I usually won't come to a happy hour after work because I prioritize that time. But I'm okay with that because, always doing homework assignments because the people who I do see from 4 to 6 p.m., do understand.
Yeah.
And so I do tend to spend, like, my social circle mostly involves people from the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And while I do things with people from work, it's different, and usually it doesn't involve exercise, and it doesn't involve thinking about whether or not we're eating anything important, or if it matters or whatever. But yeah, it's nice to have different groups of people that you know what the values are, or you can, like you said, you can have different options, even like learning to recognize that it was an option to be like, you know what, I do care about what I'm eating right now. And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say,
yeah,
I'm not going to come and eat, but I will come.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
Absolutely. Do you have a role model or an idol that you look up to?
I mean, I've always looked up to my mom. She
Mm-hmm.
has had a struggle in her life, but she's so determined. You know, she's almost 80. She runs marathons, which is crazy.
She's a legend.
So the idea of, you know, having her, she really, like, she is a go-getter. She works hard. She puts in the time and the effort. So I've always gotten my, like, work ethic from her. It's funny because, like, I was always raised that, like, you always go to work, sick days aren't really a thing. And I've actually had to kind of teach myself that, like,
you can actually have
to take a step back from that, because she has such a strong work ethic and sticks with it so consistently. So, but you know, she's always been so great for me, and I love that she stays so active, and I, like, aspire to, you know, do the same.
Yeah. A little bit of a morbid one. I do love this question, however.
Oh, goodness.
It is a bonus question. Lucky number 13.
Okay.
If you would imagine that you were placed at your funeral, what would you want people to remember you for? What would be a successful tick in the box? I did what I wanted to do on this planet.
I mean, I hope that people would say that that I was a good friend to them, because I really do try to prioritize the relationships that I make. And that's my reminder to send my kids to record a video.
Yeah.
But I really do try. I don't keep a lot of friends, but the ones I keep, I try very hard to make those relationships significant. And I hope that those people, that impact would be recognized.
Yeah. A really good answer. And kind of sums up the whole way of how you choose to spend your time and what is important to you. So that's a really, really good answer.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you would want to share with us on these topics? We've been all the way around.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. No, I mean, it's been great chatting.
Yeah.
I hope I don't seem like too regimented in life. If anyone wants to do something spontaneous, please ask. Challenge my spontaneity. Let's go. I'm not great, but I'm trying to be a yes person. So yeah, it's definitely something I can work on. So
while some people are working on, some people are
working on the opposite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, of not always being spontaneous and having a plan. So if you are always spontaneous, maybe we can work together on finding a happy medium.
Medium, somewhere in between. No, totally. And I was thinking about it when you were talking about the reading books and ticking. Like, I'm super excited that I've, like, read 90 days of my meditation app. It's like, I'm super excited about it. Hit 90 days this morning, and I was just like,
yeah.
So I can totally resonate with that. And I don't think you're alone in terms of, like, wanting to track everything. I actually have quite a few informations in my clientele of people who really love to track different types of data in different ways.
Well, that makes it way easier to see the little bit of progress, right? Because as we've discussed, progress is not linear.
No.
And when it all feels like it's not going the right way, if you have some data to look back on, you can make yourself feel much more confident that you are, you know, trying and doing steps that are going to push you in the right direction eventually.
Inherit that you remember every mistake 10 times more vividly than you remember every win. So it's good to have it
true.
Back down.
For sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I hope that you have a great day, and that
Thank you. It's been lovely. And we weren't interrupted by my kids at all. It's amazing.
It's actually magical.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Building Thriving Lifestyles. I encourage you to take 5 minutes to note what was the most important thing that you learned during this episode and to start taking action on how you're going to incorporate that into your life. If you like more quick and dirty tips on how to build your thriving lifestyle, then make sure to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time.